Thank you for joining Pandemic Punditry's new mini-series called Pandemic Heroes, Life at the Epicenter. This is our second installment, and we are honored and to have Sohan de Silva, the CEO of Sri Lanka's pre-hospital ambulance service, Suwa Seriya. We want to give you a little bit of context to why he's here. Obviously, we're talking to doctors, nurses, administrators, volunteers, and also first responders in these series from around the world. And we thought we should talk to Sohan because Sri Lanka has done a pretty phenomenal job of containing the coronavirus. So they have at this point, as of today, 1,950 confirmed cases, of which 1,446 have recovered. And we've had only 11 unfortunate fatalities. So this is a handful of countries in the world that, including New Zealand, Vietnam, Thailand, Mongolia, and places like that, that have had pretty successful efforts at combating COVID-19. So I think both the government of Sri Lanka, the Ministry of Health, the armed forces, and a lot of other people, the doctors and nurses at the front line and the first responders had done a superb job of keeping the country safe. And so I'm sure the citizens of Sri Lanka are very grateful for all the work that you have also done, Sohan. And welcome to Pandemic Punditry. So today what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a very interesting session. So what I found fascinating in our conversation, Karthik and I, with Sohan, was that we were initially thinking of this as stories just from the front line, and there's lots of those from the first responder standpoint. But as we sort of peel back the layers of the onion, we were sort of very surprised and actually astounded to find the amount of sort of the training that his staff undergoes on a regular basis, in fact, in some cases, a daily basis, to become sort of the best in class in what they do. And so they have an extremely dedicated, highly trained, well-equipped cadre that help them. But also what was astounding was the amount of technology that they have built to make this scalable, seamless, and actually was very impressed. I don't know how many Sri Lankan corporates or corporates anywhere in the world have the kind of technology integration and length and breadth that they have. But it is fascinating to see. So we will actually spend a little time there. So Sohan's going to sort of walk us through some slides. He's going to essentially talk to us about some numbers, some data and analytics on how successful they have been, and also the impact the pandemic had on them. But also he's going to also talk to us and share some stories from the front lines about his staff and his efforts. Then he's going to sort of give us a very decent overview of the amount of training that goes into making these first responders, on par with some of the other countries in the world. And that was very interesting to learn about, and hope you will also find that equally fascinating as Karthik and I did. And then, of course, we will delve into the technology, and he's got some great slides to show on the kind of technology that they've deployed. So without further ado, Sohan, if you could sort of go ahead and start your story, that'll be wonderful. And we'll obviously jump in frequently and ask you questions and clarifications on the content.
Hi, good morning to everybody, and wherever joining, good day to you. All right, so generally we do 5,300 calls a day. We answer 5,300 calls a day, but during COVID, it went up to 9,000 plus a day. Similarly, we do about 1,000 plus cases a day. That also went up to about 1,500 cases a day. Generally, during normal time, 98.9% of the calls we answer on the first ring. But in this case, it went down to 96.2 because from it, the calls went from 5,300, or it almost doubled. So therefore, the first ring answer went down. The average response time also dropped a bit because we were totally busy. And also generally we attend only for emergencies. But this time we went for the pandemic related requirements as well as semi-emergencies.
So quick question on that slide. So I noticed that the number of calls versus the number of cases, there's a 1 to 5 delta there. Is that because multiple people call you about the same incident? Is that why?
Normal scenario, yes. We get a lot of multiple calls. And then sometimes even after the patient is taken, we get follow-up calls as well. So because of that, that's why we have about 1 to 5 ratio on the calls. But during COVID time, there were a lot of people panicking. There were people having a lot of questions. Those calls also started coming in.
Okay. And then is most of your calls of like a vehicular accident sort of nature, or they're sort of related to a health crisis like a heart attack and things like that? Do you have a rough idea of the breakdown?
About 26% of the calls are related to cases are related to vehicle accidents. Okay. Then about 38% are cardiac, breathing difficulty, unconscious, that type of ones. Then the others are small ones in different categories.
Great. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah. So if you take the numbers up to date from the launch, we have done about 2.6 million calls, and emergencies assigned about 559,000. Also, we were part of these major mass casualty incidents like the Vallavata building collapse, floods, and all. Also, something that we learned a lot was the last year's April Easter Sunday attack, where we had multiple incidents, major incidents, and also at the same time, the whole country, other things were happening. People were falling, people were having heart attacks, all those things were there, provided we were having a major crisis in some of the areas.
Right.
So that was a good learning, and we did a lot of changes based on that. These are our coverage map where our ambulances are placed. These are
and how many ambulances, sorry, Sohan?
297 ambulances covering the.
Okay.
You see, in some areas there are more because that's because of the population density.
Okay.
Average response time I've taken up to February 20th because the figures change during the COVID time. Western province is about less than 8.5 minutes. But if you see Eastern province, and then Central as well as North Central, it's mainly because of geographic issues.
Okay.
But on the whole,
sorry, Sohan, is that like access to roads and things like that, or?
Roads, yes. Central province, yes, because of the terrain. Eastern province and North Central, a lot of flat land, and population density is also less. So these are from the time you get the call to the time we reach the patient. Average.
So a question. So these response times, which seem really, really good, are these on par with world-class standards in other countries? Are they better? Do you know?
We are almost in par. And about 1 year ago, there was a team from Japan. They said we are almost in par with Japan as well.
Wow. Okay.
The only difference is other countries, they triage. We don't.
Okay.
So if there's an emergency, we send the ambulance. Only thing we will check to see whether it's an emergency. But if somebody wants to go to hospital for a normal checkup, we will not take the patient.
Sure.
But if it's an emergency, we will go.
Okay.
But in other countries, they had to wait. The only time we did triage was only during the COVID period.
Okay.
And these services are available to everyone, Sohan, regardless of who they are, whether they're Sri Lankans, foreign nationals, etc.
Even if it's a tourist who needs an ambulance in an emergency, we will respond. What we focus is to save a life. That is our tagline as well, save a life. So when it comes to saving a life, it doesn't matter who you are.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to starting from January, the pandemic kicked in. And initially,
by the way, if I recall the news correctly, you actually transported the first COVID patient, the Chinese national, as well, right? So the first COVID patient was also somebody that you helped.
Yeah. So that was in January, and then we were suspected there might be some outbreak. So therefore, within the next few days, we managed to secure some PPEs. Overall, we always use the mask and the gloves, but the other overalls also we managed to secure quite a bit immediately.
In
That
January?
In Jan, yes.
Wow, really in advance. Okay.
We saw it happening in other countries, so we wanted to get ready. As a result, that helped us when in March, when we had the curfew coming in and number of cases per day was increasing. That initial lot helped us till the supplier started manufacturing and giving us the proper supply. So initially we were assessing, and then if it's a COVID suspected case, we tell the ambulance to go on full PPE. But later on, we had to ask everybody to wear, because there were certain cases, unfortunately, when we go, we are called in for a chest pain, but halfway through, when you go, only we get to know when we are about to go into the hospital. Only sometimes they tell us, look, my children came from another country 2 days ago.
Oh.
So unfortunate situation like that, we had to quarantine our staff for 14 days. So there was incidents like that as well.
So people was not disclosing their travel history
at the beginning,
and putting all your staff at risk.
Yeah,
and
at the
training resources, I guess, in the process of doing that.
Not I wouldn't say not all, but few. But when few does it, we can't risk a first responder.
Right.
First responder safety comes as priority, number one.
Great.
So similarly, we had to change the work environment as well. From the call center, also we had to question, and we had a kind of a software that asks certain amount of questions to see whether the patient has any contact history, they have come from abroad, whether they are having fever, etc. But the same thing, our field staff also had to do it. New protocol was brought in that we call the at the door assessment. This protocol is used in other ambulance services around the world as well, to make sure that they are not infected before our staff reach the patient.
Okay.
Then,
and then I think you mentioned to us earlier that this disinfection process, once you've sprayed it, once you've carried a potential corona patient to the hospital and you disinfect the ambulance, that essentially puts the ambulance out of, I mean, you had to wait 3 hours with all the doors open for it to dry, right? So,
yeah.
so you know, there were, I mean, I'm looking at those numbers that were very exceptional prior to COVID, and they were only, decreased marginally. But given that, the fact that you had staff that had to be quarantined, that you had to do, extra protocols plus this cleanup, I mean, as the resources got constrained, it's not surprising those numbers sort of made a little bit of a dip.
It's like this. From the time of curfew, the staff, because sometimes they are in boarding places, sometimes they live far away. Most of the staff decided to stay at the police station itself, because our ambulances are placed at police stations.
Okay.
But unfortunately, they didn't have a place to sleep sometimes. They were sleeping on chairs.
Wow.
So the shops were closed. So generally they have their food from shops. So they didn't have shops open to have their meals. Some were even boiling Maggi noodles at the location as their food.
Wow.
Then some staff were asked to leave their boarding places, vacate their boarding places, because the landlord thought they'll be carrying the virus. So while most of us were enjoying the long stay with the families, my team was there at the location, making sure the service was running up and running 24/7. And the best part is, not a single person complained that I can't do this. The facilities, food, living conditions, we can't do this. No, not a single staff complained.
Wow.
Not only.
such a situation, how did we also manage to respond and keep them alert whilst they were also, not living under ideal conditions?
This is the commitment of the staff. If each and every staff is committed to saving a life. This is the uniqueness of the service, and they know what they are doing, and they are committed to saving a life.
Wow, it's amazing dedication.
This not only happen in our locations, even the head office. There were staff who were outstation and they didn't have a way to go, so they lived in the office.
Wow. Wow. I think it's quite creditable that people did that, and then when you tell those stories and you then contrast that against the initial numbers, I mean, there was only a marginal fractional difference in service quality, given the almost doubling of the calls. I mean,
that is mainly because everybody had to get on to full PPE before setting off.
Right.
So that was the slight difference, and also keep in mind that ambulances were fully occupied.
Right.
At one stage, one night, almost end of March, 148 ambulances were occupied at 11 o'clock in the night.
Wow.
So it's almost 50%.
Wow. Yeah. So then you also made some changes, right, Sohan, in sort of how you operated?
Yeah. Also in the call center, also we had to do the same thing because we need to have that the distancing done. So we had to convert the training rooms also into call center. We had to put up an outbound call center because the call load was getting high. So as I said, the triage part came in here. Anybody calling us, we will answer the call immediately, because as an emergency call center, we can't have a patient online waiting for call waiting. So we had to go on. We answer the call. If it's an emergency, we respond immediately. But if it's a COVID related problem, we take the details and we pass it on to the outbound call center, where they will call back, they do the assessment and dispatch the ambulance. Similarly, we can't say, look, somebody's having a cardiac, and then we can't say we don't have an ambulance. So that's why we had to triage the COVID suspected patients and make sure that there's always ambulances for an emergency. This was done dynamically on the system itself.
Okay, so when you earlier said that in the UK and all, they triage. So what do you mean by triage is that when somebody calls, then they sort of evaluate whether before they dispatch. In your case, yes, you just dispatch, right? If it's
generally we do like that. But during COVID, we had to, like, if somebody says I'm having fever,
right,
or I'm having a bad cough or a sore throat, that is not a medical emergency.
Right.
So we will send the ambulance. Definitely we'll send the ambulance, but it'll take some time.
Okay.
Okay. And how did you deal with the additional bandwidth related constraints and things like that as well, Sohan?
Yeah, we had to. We had within 3 days we had to set up another call center. We used the boardroom for that. We converted the boardroom into a call center. We brought the admin PCs there, and the admin staff was also used as call center agents during this period at the beginning. The software was also upgraded similarly, so that there's a second, the outbound call center was developed. So that's how we brought back the.
So all of this done in just a matter of 3 days.
3 days.
Matter of 3 days, because our backbone was ready always.
Okay, and we'll talk about that in a bit, I guess. So this, you were talking about the quality of the equipment, right? I think when you were sharing these slides with me, I was quite impressed. I mean, so please explain. I think you have different varieties of stretchers.
We have 4 kinds of stretchers in the ambulance. The auto loader, the spine board, the stair chair, and the scoop stretcher. The scoop stretcher is the one you see in the middle. That is very important because somebody has fallen and we are suspecting spine damage. we use this scoop stretcher to move the patient safely.
Okay.
And also the AED, the nebulizer, suction machine, the patient monitor. Apart from these, we have the extrication tools as well. When you go to especially a motor traffic accident, you need these tools to take the patient out. Though we are not a rescue team, but in order to perform our duty, sometimes we need this.
Wow. So this is this standard in elsewhere in the world, or this is something that you localized based on the understanding of your particular situation, and you put these into ambulances? This is not something that came standard when you got the ambulances, I assume.
No, the reason is elsewhere when there's an ambulance response to a motor traffic accident, generally the fire engine also comes.
Correct.
Retrieve the patient. But in our case, we are, there are so many motor traffic accidents as well. Right. So therefore, we have to have these equipment with us.
Great. I mean, it's very, very ingenious of you to sort of think about this and put that in there. And you have a lot of people in very remote locations as well. So, you can't run a fire truck down there with jaws of life, but having this kind of tooling inside the ambulance makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Going on to trainings, we are loaded with trainings because that's how we keep the quality up. We do quite a bit of trainings with the CBRN units of the forces.
So these are the chemical warfare units and all of that, right? From the
bio warfare.
And chemical, biological, nuclear.
Okay. And my understanding is that the staff are actually qualified to be EMTs, right? They're emergency medical technicians, right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Our training partner. So initially, when we hire somebody, we send them to GVK EMR India for the initial training. Then when they come back, they are trained here in Sri Lanka for 1 month, and then after that, they are again put to the locations to work with somebody. Then totally only after that only they are put on their own. Apart from that, every 3 months, all EMTs must go through a refresher training. So basically, they had to go through 4 refresher trainings a year. The refresher trainings are done by the Sri Lanka Society of Critical Care and Emergency Medicine. Now, these are the same doctors who are in the call center as well to advise our staff. I'll come to that later. And apart from that, the Australian New Zealand College of Paramedics, we have an agreement with them. They come here every 6 months. They don't charge us a cent. They buy their tickets, hotel, leave, everything is on them. The whole team comes down to train our teams. Every 6 months they come. Unfortunately, they were due in June, but they have postponed it up to September this year.
So the staff gets 2 months of training in India when they start.
Yes.
Then on the job training, sort of, where they shadow or mirror an existing person. Then every quarter you have the Sri Lanka Society of Critical Care and Emergency Medicine training them. And then every 6 months they have Australia, New Zealand paramedics, physicians coming and training them.
So for any potential, aspiring EMTs watching, is there like a prerequisite to join Sohan, or?
Our EMTs are with bio A-level pass.
Okay.
So from there we build them.
Okay.
These are some of the refresher trainings, and then some of the faculty training, the foreign faculty that comes down for the training, the Australian, New Zealand. Apart from that, we have the skills training every 6 months. Now, lifting, carrying, moving patients is a very important part as well. So that training also happens every 6 months. Now, these are monitored, logged. We have all the protocols in place. Then the ERO is a call center staff. Call center staff are also taught how to take down the details, mark on the map how when a person calls, if they don't know the address, then we are trying to teach everybody, all the call center staff, Tamil, so that they can answer without transferring the call to a Tamil agent. Then all call center staff, every 6 months, they go and spend 1 day in the ambulance to learn what happens there.
That's interesting.
And do you find that that sort of makes a difference for the EROs who answer the call? Do they get a sense?
Two sides. They understand what happens in the ambulance, the difficulties the ambulance staff faces. Also, I'm trying to get down by the end of this year all the field staff to come and spend 1 day in the call center, so they know what 12-hour shift, the trauma they listen to right throughout. The field staff also will understand the difficulty the call center staff goes through.
So
Excellent.
speaking of trauma, Sohan, obviously when you're answering all these calls, it can be mentally quite traumatic for the staff. So do you have any checks and balances in place to ensure that?
We have. Then the management training, because when we move out, our next layer should take over. So the regional managers and even the district in charge, we train them internally. We don't spend money to send them outside for training. We use our inside resources to train them as well.
So how long does it take for a EMT to become like a district officer? Is there like a...
It's difficult to say because we are still maximum. We are not in 4 years. We are just 4 years. We are reaching.
This was really fascinating. This daily.
Yeah.
And I will really spend a little time and explain why this is so critical.
Yeah. Now this is a practice we had. Again, I need to tell you, we had to stop this during the COVID time, but from next Monday we are starting it again. Every morning at 7 o'clock, before the shift changes, the staff is required to do a set of exercises, lifting, carrying, moving, all those things. How they do it is they open the ambulance door, so the camera starts recording. Some locations we can't do that because sometimes we are parked on the road, so they move on to a room in the police station. These are recorded and sent to the head office for the quality and the training team to review. The reason is, we have audited there are about 132 steps from the time we send an ambulance to the time we hand over the patient, average. If we delay 1 second at each step, minimum of 2 minutes, that 2 minutes may be a difference of life and death. So, for example, the scoop stretcher, taking it out without a patient, locking and unlocking is different when there's a patient. You need to slightly slant the lock, for it to come out quickly. Taking out the stretcher and putting it back in, I'm talking about seconds. This organization works in seconds, not in minutes or hours. So every second matters to us.
So this is fascinating. I don't know whether other ambulance. Do you know whether other ambulance organizations in the world do this kind of training every day? Not training. I guess it's a practice.
Not on a daily basis, but the difference is we have to remember other ambulance services have paramedics with a 4-year degree.
Okay.
And that makes a difference. How, Sohan? Sorry, just for the people who are watching.
Okay. So practice makes them perfect. That's the main thing.
The paramedics, because they have a different role, is it? They can actually treat somebody there. Is that why?
They have a quite a different role in other countries.
Okay. I see. Because your philosophy is get there quickly and then bring them to the hospital.
Get there, stabilize the patient, and bring the patient.
Okay, got it.
Then we have a scorecard as well. Staff is evaluated on these areas. Operation, quality, and HR. So even the exercises are evaluated. This is done in order to make sure we find the staff who needs to be retrained. So this with the bell curve, it helps us to find the ones who needs to be retrained.
Wow. Okay, great. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the technology that's behind this operation, right? So I mean, and I think this is the most fascinating part of the conversation. And just so those people who are listening, I forgot to say this in the beginning. If you have any questions, please submit those through the Q&A section on Zoom, and on Facebook, submit it through the Facebook comments, and we'll tabulate those and have them prepared for Sohan to answer. Karthika will moderate as usual. But so please go ahead and do that. And at any time, if you have a question, Karthika, if it seems relevant, then we can interrupt Sohan and ask him that question as we normally do. Okay, please, Sohan.
All right. So the dispatching, the call center is in Rajagiriya, which is the office we have here in Sri Lanka. All vehicles are fixed with GPS with real-time positioning. We know if it's parked, engine on, moving, brake, put the siren on. All those things are recorded every 3 seconds in the on our servers. We are Google Traffic integrated. That's why we can always send the fastest ambulance and not the nearest ambulance. Nearest will not reach, will be the fastest. Then call to wheel time. We have targets to the ambulance. From the time we assign the call, within 1.5 minutes, they have to move, start the engine, move out of the police station, and hit 10 kilometers an hour.
1.5 minutes.
1.5 minutes. These are the KPIs. Then the call center will follow up on the case closer. I'll tell you what happens there later on.
So I just want to relate a little bit on. I'm looking at this, and I've spoken to you now a couple of times, and I'm just fascinated by sort of the amount of the training, the dedication of your staff, and now I'm seeing the technology. I must relate a personal situation. I remember having I've had at multiple times I've used ambulances in the US and in India. The last time on the Indian ambulance, I was being rushed to the hospital nearby. And my wife was suddenly screaming at the guy, "Why have you stopped?" The ambulance driver didn't know where the hospital was. So he was asking the bystanders on the road directions to the hospital. Right.
Wow.
I don't know, it was, a long conversation felt like a long time for me.
Lucky you weren't a cardiac patient.
Yeah, I know. So, gladly, thank God I was not that badly ill, but this is amazing that you have the technology to not only sort of figure out not the nearest ambulance, but the fastest one using technology, and that your GPS monitored. So, this is a very different class of service than what I've experienced. So it's fabulous.
So speaking of service, I think there's a very relevant question which probably people joining from overseas don't understand about the ambulance service. Vikram, thank you for joining us today. And his question to you, Sohan, is what is the revenue model for the organization? So I think you should say.
This is a government-funded project now. Earlier it was a grant from the Indian government.
I think $22 million grant by the Indian government.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now we are funded by the government of Sri Lanka. We 190 Seriya Foundation it was established under Act of Parliament. We are placed under the Ministry of Health, and the government of Sri Lanka funds the operation.
So just to be clear, it's a completely free service that's offered to Sri Lankans and tourists alike, right?
Yes.
Anybody in Sri Lanka.
Anyone in Sri Lanka.
And it's all island coverage.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to the technology, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. When somebody calls 1990 on a normal line or a mobile, the system will pick up your number. We will ask what your district, your city, and what we'll need is only your location. We don't need all the full address. So we will ask those details. We'll ask what the emergency is. The system will show the fastest ambulance. We will dispatch the ambulance. See, at the beginning, what we need to know is from the police station, turn left or right. Halfway through, we'll get the other details and the address as well. Then only we'll need the other details. And when we dispatch, sometimes what happens is people will call. They are not at home. They are on a trip. They met with an accident. They'll say, for example, I'm on the road between Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa. in the North Central Province. We will have to ask further questions and see how many kilometers from this point do you remember, did you pass a junction like this? On that, we can, on the system itself, we can drop the pin, zoom it and drop the pin to the probably the place that we are expecting as per the instructions given by the patient party.
Okay.
Now these details we push to the ambulance, which we call the navigator. Again, that is integrated with Google Traffic. So they know where to go, looking at the location. This saves a lot of time as well. When they reach there, they press the on the navigator, they press the button that says reach location. So the call center is updated that they have reached the patient location. Also, something additionally that happens is sometimes most of these addresses are not available on Google Maps. Our secondary database captures the address and the coordinates. So later on, in a few years' time, we will have a full address against the GPS coordinates database.
So Sohan, even with all of these challenges, you're averaging an all-island response time of about 11 minutes.
Yeah, 11 and a half minutes. These days, it's about 14 and a half.
Wow.
Wow.
So then the EMT will go.
Oh, sorry, one clarification. So in that 11.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes is actually somebody getting into the car, the ambulance, and getting up to 10 kilometers an hour, right? So it's actually 11 minus 1.5 minutes is actually the time, which is amazing.
So then the EMT will, what happens is the EMT will have their medicine bag, and depending on the case with the AED, they'll have that equipment ready. They will get off the ambulance and run to the patient. The pilot will stop the ambulance and follow the EMT. The EMT will assess the patient, take a call to our doctor who's in the call center. Now, as I told you before, these doctors are from the Sri Lanka Society of Critical Care and Emergency Medicine. The doctor will advise the EMT the type of treatment that needs to be done. And also the doctor will decide on the hospital. The doctor's screen will see the hospitals that are available in the area. And the doctor can add all the other details as well.
Okay.
When the doctor decides on
how many people per ambulance? Sorry, Sohan, just 2 people, is it?
We have the pilot who is the driver, but the reason why we call him the pilot is he's a assistant EMT as well. He's been trained on first aid, lifting, carrying, AED usage, CPR, all those things. And then the EMT. So we have only 2 people.
Yeah. And they're responsible for that entire operation until the patient gets to the hospital. Wow.
So when the doctor selects the hospital, that location is pushed back to the ambulance, and the ambulance pilot knows where to go. At the same time, something parallelly happens. The hospital that the doctor selected will be again geofence. That's like a kind of a circle with the hospital mark. So the moment the ambulance crosses that point, we get updated that the ambulance has entered the hospital. Similarly, when the ambulance moves out, it gets updated. Parallelly, we know that the ambulance is now available for another case. So one of the reasons why we don't sometimes take a patient back home, there had been quite a few requests. If the ambulance is ready, halfway through, when we are passing a road, passing somewhere, the system will pick that ambulance as the closest ambulance or the fastest ambulance. So if we have somebody we are dropping home, we can't drop the patient home and come and collect the next patient. So that's why we don't.
It's not like a taxi service.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So that's why we don't drop the patient back home.
Great.
But during the COVID time, for critical care patients who want to come back home, did you make any exceptions? Or
During COVID time is the worst time. We were so busy, and if we had to take a patient home, it's going to put us into a lot of constraints. And also similarly, if we take a COVID suspected case, our ambulances were disinfected at the hospital, by the hospital. and then after that you have to keep it
Open for 3 hours.
open for 3 hours. So there's no way of taking a patient back home because of the operational requirements.
So this disinfection at the hospital, was that a government mandated protocol, Sohan? Or?
Yes. We are under the health sector, DG Health Services. So we get all these guidelines from there as well.
So then you go back to the base, which is in your case always a police station.
Yes.
And then as soon as you come back to base, because the police station is geofenced, the system knows you're back to base.
But there'll be situations where there's blood spatter, vomit, and the staff needs to clean. So they can request on the tab itself that they need cleaning on the navigator. So they'll have about half an hour. Within half an hour, if the ambulance has not come online, the call center will follow up to see if they are having any difficulty. Similarly, sometimes when we when you go to hand over patient to a hospital, there might be some issues. Handing over process or whatever. So we have the average handover time of each hospital. That average handover time plus another 10 minutes. Call center will call back to see whether they need any assistance.
Okay. So you have collected enough data that you know what the average for each hospital is. So yes, you have alerts that go out just as those parameters are breached. So you can be always on top of this to say, hey, what's happening, what's going on, right? So, I mean, this kind of close monitoring is what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay.
Not only people can call us on the 1990 number, we have the 1990 app available on Android and Apple as well. Unlike the taxi apps where if you don't have data or GPS, your call will not reach. No, this will, even if you don't have your GPS and your data is not working, still the call will come as a normal call. The 1990 number is a free number anyway. So that will reach us anyway. But if we have the number, if they have your location, the system comes with your location. This is what happens when you get a call from the app.
So this is the key point that you said earlier, which is sometimes when somebody just calls you, you have to sort of discern where the location is.
Yeah.
So I think you should encourage, I guess you're encouraging all residents to have this app, because immediately your location is automatically in the system if you use the app.
It helps us about 1.5 minutes on the call itself.
1.5 minutes.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't know your location. If you know your location, it's easy. But if you don't know your location, to ask the questions and drop the pin on the map, it takes 1.5 minutes. That is a critical time. And also, outstation. If your location is marked, it's very easy for us to find you.
Right.
There are situations where we tell them, can you hear the siren? We call them and ask, can you hear the siren? If you can hear the siren, give us some indication, or at least try to come on to the main road. We can find you, because the places are not marked properly.
Correct. So I think now I'm hoping that if at least people in Sri Lanka, when they see this, they
download the app.
They go immediately today itself and download the app, because this will save 1.5 minutes of your time.
Yeah, and it's also for tourists apparently.
And for tourists, anybody in Sri Lanka. Yeah.
If a tourist is coming, they can download from the App Store. Install it.
How are they being informed about this service, Sohan?
We are signed up with a few companies. They are going to put up some displays on the airport, and the mobile service providers will also have leaflets available at their counter, so that tourists coming in to the country will know that they can get this service free of charge. It's comforting to know you come into a country that there's an ambulance service that will take you to a hospital in an emergency.
A free ambulance service.
Free ambulance service.
Great. So okay. And then it also tied into the police 119, right?
Yes. We have a 119 officer in the call center as well.
Okay.
For example, motor vehicle accidents, when we get to know we will update the system, and through the system will inform the officer. The officer will radio the nearest police station, and he'll update our system as well. So the officers who are in the call center, they are trained to update this system as well. Motor vehicle or assault, all these cases, they will update the system as well.
Okay.
Once again, as I told you before, everything is protocol driven. Patient handling, every step has a protocol.
Right.
Calling the doctor is compulsory in the call center.
Okay.
EMT has to call the doctor. 24/7 doctors are available. And once again, as I told you, the doctors are from the Sri Lanka Society of Critical Care and Emergency Medicine.
And you said, I remember you mentioning somewhere that they're all doctors who work in the trauma units around the country.
Yes. These doctors are working in government hospitals somewhere in a ETU, and they come here to, depending on their shift.
So do they do this as a service, Sohan, or is that part of their?
They are doing their postgraduate qualifications. So this is also part of their requirement as well.
I see.
The doctors will decide on the hospital, the suitable hospital. And also we have strict discipline for or to use all the protocols, and not using the protocols will have disciplinary action as well.
Okay.
So this was actually the most interesting part. So because you're taxpayer funded now in terms of your operating costs right now. Yeah, go ahead. I think this was quite astounding.
Yeah, the board is voluntary. And also I need to say a very supportive and forward-thinking board. Then the chairman, he doesn't even have office here. He doesn't take a salary, mobile phones, nothing. He's also totally voluntary, and also the office works till 5 o'clock. So we don't end at 4:30. We work till 5. Then we take only the mercantile holidays. Also, we don't have any chauffeurs, no secretaries, no assistants. So basically, even I don't have a driver to drive me up and down. Basically, anybody in the organization doesn't have. Also, the only vehicles we have are ambulances. These are decision taken by the board long time ago. Because when CEOs change, chairmen change, nothing. We have only an ambulance. Now, all these things, now we have about 1,400 staff. All these things are managed in the admin office. There's only 36 people. Stores has only 2. Finance, remember the stores manages the whole inventory of the whole country. Finance has only 3. HR has only 3. IT has 4 because they are working 24 hours because there's one person always here. And the staff is 1,424 with the EMTs and the pilots. EMT is the call center staff. Then we have every district, we have a district officer, but some districts we have, for cost saving purposes, we have reduced the number of say for example, northern, there are 5 districts, but there are only 2 district officers. Likewise, we have reduced cost.
Wow.
So so this is, I mean, it's amazing that you're doing so much with so little and without any of the trappings of sort of what we normally perceive as cushy jobs, right? So no assistants, no secretaries, no company car, none of those stuff. So I think that's very creditable.
And also, you have to bear in mind, all these the staff who are working here are committed staff. They are not only here for a pay. They are here to do something. And also I need to mention, we have the systems in place. We have all those things will help the staff to perform their job. But if not for the commitment from the field staff as well as the office staff and the call center staff, this will not go. I call this a Formula One, just like Formula One team. Everyone, is performing and has to perform their duty for us to save a life.
Because just like Formula One, seconds matter.
Yeah.
Second,
And also there seems to be a very good case study for, you know, how the leadership has managed to kind of hold on to a really good culture within the organization of everybody understanding that this is a service.
exactly.
And that's been borne out by the commitment shown by the first responders during COVID.
COVID.
That was true. Yes.
These support systems are also very interesting. If you could just, especially the WhatsApp stuff, I mean, that was also.
So,
this is
yeah, I'll quickly run through because of the time constraint. Staff signing in, because we are not having everybody in one location all over the country. So they have their apps for logging in attendance. Then staff movements. There are district officers who are moving up and down. Even I use this app when I go for a meeting. I set on the system, so my travel, everything is logged in. Now this app is getting upgraded where I can even now later on I can put the notes, to-do list, everything on this. So I don't have to come back to office and type my to-do list. Not only this app, we are using WhatsApp type apps as well. The grooming app is managed by the district officer to make sure that you're in your full uniform properly every morning and evening. Then the PR group update is like emergency cases, pregnancy cases, all these things are informed to us as well. Ambulances going offline, apart from the system, the system monitors it as well, but you're on the move most of the time, and it's very easy for you to see what are the ambulances that are gone for maintenance, tire replacement, etc. So this WhatsApp has become a part of our life, and similarly, we are using that to keep us updated as well on anything that happens 24/7.
And then you do this fuel monitoring as well, right?
Yeah, we started the app started a few months ago, and we don't use cash; we use the card. So every
all the pilots, all the drivers have a corporate card.
Yeah.
To buy gasoline.
Yes, yes. And then automatically it comes onto the system, and then it is monitored by the fleet team. They see the fuel performance of each refill, and they will, if there is a requirement, they will go check the vehicle to see whether it's a driving problem or whether it's a vehicle issue. Then, if needed, they'll move the ambulance for maintenance. Also, the inventory is requirement based. For example, a bottle, Dettol bottle. Every location will not need a 1 liter bottle. You need fast moving locations will need a 1 liter. Slow moving locations will need a smaller bottle. So depending on the requirement, only we send the inventory.
And that's also tracked using systems.
And then also expired items. 4 months before item gets expired, we get it down. When we go on the inventory distribution, we get it down. On the third month, that is distributed in the Colombo district. So 1 month before expiry, it's taken back. So that way, the number of expiry items that we have to get rid of is less.
Saving money again.
Yeah. Then audits and follow-ups happen. We have different type of audits. Then the care, we call the PCR, patient care report, that is uploaded immediately to an app, and the quality team reviews it individually. Then field audit teams are there to go and check the status. Also, the audit report, it's the compulsory weekly audit review meeting is a CEO's meeting where CEO has to sit for the audit meeting.
So we are auditing everything here. I mean, everything from quality of care to vehicle fuel consumption to everything. Everything is audited, right? Because you're monitoring everything. I mean, I know that given that you used to be in the data center business, being an IT guy yourself, obviously uptime and all these things, you're very attuned to sort of looking at analytics. So I guess that's the background you bring.
Then 48 hours after the patient is handed over to the hospital, we call back. We check what the patient condition is, and if they have a feedback, and if they have a complaint, now those complaints are escalated up to the CEO.
I see. So you call back the patient or the hospital, Sohan, or both?
No, the patient.
I see.
Finally, failures and DR.
Disaster recovery.
Yes, disaster recovery. Now, even the ambulance has two SIMs on their phones, what is called the base location phones. Then the GPS, if that GPS fails, it automatically will route to the tab that we have. It will not give all the details like we used to get from the GPS, but we'll know the location of the ambulance. Now here there are three type of failures. The phone system will go down, the IT system will go down, or everything will go down. These are some photographs when everything has gone down, but we will move on to you'll see the white color phones. Those are standard phones. Calls will come to us because we have a technical agreement with Sri Lanka Telecom. They route even if their soft switch goes down, they route their calls to copper phones. So there are a set of copper phones will start ringing. We move to the whiteboard to mark the ambulance locations, and then pens, files will come out. But
Paper comes out.
Yes, but to
So
keep
how often do you do this practice training?
Every 3 months, one night.
Months.
Yeah.
Okay. So every 3 months, it's a drill, like you just
drill, yeah. Prepared. It's great. Karthika, questions?
So far, people are just blown away, and I'm only getting positive comments about how good the
That's
work.
always good. Positive comments are always good. So we have about, I think we're about 5 minutes. So I think, Sohan, I am personally sort of super impressed and gratified that, as a citizen of Sri Lanka, that this is a fabulous sort of achievement for the country. All of this is indigenously developed software, right? I mean, this is all locally produced.
Yes.
Okay.
All software is locally developed.
Okay. And I know for the future, you're thinking of.
I need to tell this as well. All staff is Sri Lankan as well.
All staff is Sri Lankan. Okay. And what are the plans for the future in terms of the next steps? I mean, you mentioned some interesting things that are coming up.
We are trying to bring in an analytics for the patient, what you call the patient care report.
Okay.
That we are trying to bring in analytics. Then the body cam. And also we're trying to bring the two-way
radios. So instead of relying on mobile telephony, that you would use radio frequency
as a failover. And also this system is also now almost developed. In case of a tsunami or a floods or whatever, we have marked safe locations. So we will inform the ambulance to move to safe locations, and the moment it is done, we will get an update saying all these ambulances are in safe locations now.
So Sohan, just going back to the drawing board originally when you started, the vision was to save the life as quickly as possible, or how did we get here?
It was right throughout save the life.
I mean, so are you at liberty to name who develops all this software? I mean, do you want to give them a call out, or is that confidential?
There are quite a few suppliers.
Okay.
But see, now what I didn't mention on the call was the changes that we did for the COVID. Those changes, like allocating only a certain amount of ambulances for the triage, and monitoring those that the quantity doesn't exceed. Then setting up the call center, the technical support. All those
and
things
you were able to actually at some point people were able to work from home also, right? I mean, the systems were. I mean, this is something that I think Sri Lankan corporates were struggling to do, but you were able to do that.
Yes,
you also mentioned, Sohan, that your vendors were so forthcoming and so helpful that some of this stuff they actually turned it around free of charge and things like that.
All the changes that they did for the COVID pandemic was done free of charge. And then there was another supplier who came and gave us the questionnaire I told you about. That was done. That system was done free of charge. There were a lot of people who came forward to help us free of charge during the crisis.
Wow. So what? I mean, so what's next? I mean, can these response times be improved if we had more ambulances, for example?
It can be.
Okay.
Especially outstation, we'd like to bring it down to about 8 minutes.
Okay.
So we want to bring the whole country under 8 minutes.
So you've achieved so much in such a short period of time, Sohan, with the team, obviously. So what's kind of your next phase, or what's your next vision? What's that other mountain that you want to climb now?
So next one is just like other countries. We would now, these are what you call the BLS ambulances, basic life support.
I see.
We like to get a few ALS ambulances, advanced life support, where in other countries, when you say it's a cardiac case, when you give a call, the BLS will go and the ALS will follow, and the ALS afterwards will take over the patient.
I see. I see.
So those will be more highly equipped, highly advanced ambulances, and a highly trained team also will be present in those ambulances. So basically, every district to have few. That will, because I mean, looking at it, 38% are unconscious and cardiac cases. So then we need to focus on that as well. But given the situation, the financial restraints uh, at the moment, we are happy with what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's tremendous what you've been doing for sort of a very small, I mean, comparatively small investment. I mean, there's an ongoing investment by the government of Sri Lanka, of course, but the 22 million that Indian government grant, and then of course all of the expenses and ongoing expenses that are incurred. But I mean, given that you're saving lives on a daily basis, I think it's well worth the return. I'm just wondering.
Once again, all this is possible because of the commitment of the staff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's really clear. I mean, the amount of the sheer dedication, the training, the daily training that they do, the constant upgradation of their skills, I think it's just fascinating. I mean, totally inspiring. One, I was just thinking, Kartika, I don't know why the Sri Lanka Tourist Board doesn't do this, but they should make a little clip on the quality of
sure.
medical care, right? I mean, the reason that we have sort of remains relatively unscathed by this COVID crisis is that Sri Lanka has an unenviable primary healthcare system.
Which, by the way, we provided free even for tourists who are living here during
and,
COVID-19.
Yeah, and we have very good hospital systems, great doctors, great nurses. I mean, given all of that, I mean, we should really make a clip about the fact that, it's safe to come here. You have an ambulance service that picks you up on average 8 minutes after you get a call anywhere in the country, roughly. And, it's well equipped. They have good hospitals, great doctors. I think it's a reassurance. I don't know. They should do a clip on this. Anyway, I don't run the tourist board, but that's just my
Sorry,
idea.
Sohan, you were trying to say something?
During the COVID crisis, we got a lot of support from the hospitals, hospital staff, doctors, and even the ministry. Yeah. Sometimes, I used to call when we have an issue at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning to ministry officials, and they all answered the phone. Yeah, so that's a lot of comfort. Yeah. Including my chairman. I call the chairman at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Is there a message you want to give out to the citizens of Sri Lanka, Sohan? It's like a...
Two things. One thing is, please download the app and install. And second thing is, because sometimes we get calls saying a person has fallen, a slight cut, which doesn't need ambulance. But still, we can't take a risk, so therefore we attend. But when if you know that it's a case that you can go to a hospital on your own, because you might be missing a chance for another person. Because if the ambulance in that area is busy, we have to send the other ambulance, which will take some time. So those are the two messages, and especially that there are about 6 million smartphones in the country, and we like to see everybody installing that, because that's going to save hell of a lot of time for us in reaching the patient.
Yeah. So hopefully this we've shown the reason why actually from the back end with on the actual screen. So I'm hoping that most Sri Lankans heed your call and do download that app. Kartika, any more questions? I know there's very positive feedback.
Positive comments and feedbacks only. Perhaps we should do a shout out to the 1990 team, Lavi, especially the first responders, because I think the commitment that they have shown during the pandemic is unparalleled in terms of some of the hardships that they have had to face.
Yes, I think so. On behalf of Pandemic Punditry, please communicate this to your staff, Sohan, that we are grateful and thankful that they've made these tremendous sacrifices. I know that you personally had a newborn baby to deal with as well, a few months old. So I know you've made some personal sacrifices as well, put your family and your little one at risk as well. So we are very thankful. Exceptionally impressed with the commitment and the frontline ethos that you have developed and the service ethos. I think congratulations to you, the board, the staff, the ministry officials, everybody else who's involved in this great endeavor. And we wish you, continued success. Keep us posted. Would love to have you back at some point with some of the new things that you've done. Again, so on behalf of Pandemic Punditry and Karthika and myself, thank you for joining us this morning. And I'm hoping that not only Sri Lanka, but maybe other countries who will be watching this will be inspired to adopt some of these techniques. I certainly hope so. This is where I think Sri Lanka is leading, in fact, or at the very least, comparable to some of the more advanced countries in the world, and that's really heartening to see.
When you mentioned the 190 ambulance service, or also known with the public as the Indian ambulance service, you can't forget the people of India for giving us this generous grant for starting the phase 1 and running it for 1 year, and then phase 2 initiating and then running it for 1 year.